Our Trade Union Federation, COSATU, has made proposals to Treasury on reforms to be tabled in Parliament, which include taxation relief on withdrawals and for workers to be given the right to choose to transfer funds from their vested pot to the new two-pot system. Our spokesperson, Matthew Parks, joins us now for more. Matthew, thanks very much indeed for coming on. And just in response to what Pop Crew just had to say, is that the kind of advice you're giving your members as well, to actually not make use of the system?
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. Look, as COSATU, we've campaigned for the two-pot pension reform since 2020. We tabled many proposals. We did not obviously get all of what we had asked for. There are some areas we're not happy about. But overall, it is a victory for workers. And the idea is to give workers choices, because every worker's circumstance it varies slightly. So it really depends on your individual circumstance. Do you need the money or don't you need the money?
Yeah.
You must weigh up the pros and the cons of the tax deductions versus taking a loan from the bank. But the idea is let's try to avoid workers resigning, because that creates the worst crisis of unemployment, of depleting one's pension fund. And then, yes, you will pay off your debt, but the next week you'll be back into a debt because you're unemployed now in an economy with a 40% unemployment rate. So it's not perfect. But this is the first round of reforms. We made proposals for the next round of reforms, many of them to actually address Popcor's legitimate concerns around it. Can you make the tax regime less burdensome for low-income workers? Can we also allow workers greater access to the existing savings invested rights pot, so we have more than 30,000 Rand relief to enable workers to pay off debts, etc.? Can we allow workers to utilize their pension funds for education loans for themselves or for their children, because that's an investment in their career path, their earning potential, and obviously that boosts them come retirement. And of course, to make sure that workers retain access to the full savings, both invested, the savings pot and also the preservation pot, in the event that they are retrenched, they lose their jobs. And of course, when a worker loses their job, you can't tell them about waiting for retirement when they need to save the house tomorrow and to take care of their family today. So this is the first step. It's a welcome first step. It's not perfect, but it gives the foundation for further reforms to really make sure workers' pension funds are geared to supporting workers and their families during the course of their career, and also when they retire as well, because right now the system doesn't work and we need to fix it for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right, Matthew. It's not a perfect system, and ideally none of us would want to touch our pensions, right? But realistically speaking, as you say, workers do need choices, and all of the suggested reforms from COSATU make an incredible amount of sense, from education to especially the tax reforms that are needed, the taxation clauses, that are currently in the two-pot system. So currently it's between 18 and 45% that you can be taxed on your withdrawals. Is there still space? You've said that this is the first round of reforms. Is there still space for these changes to possibly take effect?
But there is space. Obviously, it won't happen, tomorrow. It takes time to amend legislation. The fact that it took us since 2020 to today to reach this journey where we are right now, it shows it does take time. But these are tax reforms, so they are adjusted every year. The Treasury has already released its draft bills for the next tax year. We made our submission as COSATU to Treasury. And because they're tax legislation, they are normally expedited through Parliament. They normally come to Parliament September, or between August and October normally, and they normally pass before Parliament concludes at the end of November, beginning of December, to come into effect by the next tax year, March next year. So we've made these proposals, as well as to say that we think we do need to have a cap on what administrative fees pension funds also charge the members to, because we think there are some instances where some pension funds misbehave and charge excessive, unreasonable fees. But I think for us, we're keen to begin this discussion. We have already signaled to Treasury, and that was always part of the discussion we've had over the past 4 years at Parliament, at NEDLAC, but these are initial reforms. We now need to also look at the other ones. We didn't want to overload the system because these are really substantial reforms. The Reserve Bank has estimated that up to 100 billion Rand might flow out of pension funds now to give a worker some relief. So this is not small stuff. Yes, at times you do have to take it one step at a time, but we also don't want to delay further reforms too long because workers are really struggling. And the reality is right now, if you look at the Reserve Bank figures, on average every year about 74 billion Rand is taken out of pension funds by workers who are highly indebted and who simply have no alternative option except to resign. So really trying to stem that by saying, look, there is a better alternative. You could access 30,000 Rand, up to 30,000 Rand today. You could access a third of future savings going forward without having to resign. And I think for us as a trade federation, what we want to avoid at all costs is adding towards the unemployment queue. And simultaneously, we have to admit there is a crisis right now that only 6% of South Africans roughly can afford to retire in comfort. That's another crisis. We've got to juggle multiple issues. Sometimes they're contradictory issues too. Do you survive today, or do you save for retirement? We've got to find what is the best balance. But I think right now, the law has been a little bit too rigid, and we need to give some relief to workers, avoid resignations, and also boost savings in the long term. And we do need to look at the tax system because, look, tax has always been there. No one likes taxes. They've been there since the biblical era. Everybody hates taxes. But if you don't have taxes, then the state won't have the money to pay police officers. It won't have money to pay the nurses who deliver our children or the teachers who educate them. They won't have money to pay for the roads we require to get to work. So we've got to make sure that when you have a tax system, that it is progressive, that it is geared towards low-income workers. And for example, workers are highly indebted. Police officers are paid a pittance. So we need to see how do you, for example, give relief to low-income workers and make sure the tax system is more progressive, that the low-income workers pay less and high-income earners pay more.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, there's the issue, Matthew, of the arrear taxes. SARS also says it plans to deduct any arrear tax from these pension fund withdrawals. And I imagine that would be devastating for many, many people.
Yeah, look, it's a difficult issue. We've appealed to SARS and to Treasury to take a humane approach, not to get excited because workers are getting some relief, because many workers want that relief to pay off other debts, or maybe even to pay off one debt at a time, to free up cash in the salary to pay the next debt next month, and so forth. It depends on the circumstance. You might find a worker's got 8 loans, and if you can pay off one loan at a time, each time it helps to reinforce and free up space to pay the next one. But look, under the existing laws for years, SARS has got the right to go to your employer, to your bank, or to your pension fund all these years and to collect any money you owe them. They don't do it because of the current tax bill you have, which you've got within the current tax year to settle it, and even beyond. But if, for instance, you have not paid tax or somebody IAP5s for 5 years, yes, the brutal reality is SARS has got the capacity and the law to do so, and there's no discussion. We've appealed to them, look, don't take advantage of this moment. Go and talk to these workers who owe you money. We've also appealed to workers who've reached out to us that the best thing they must do is to contact SARS to verify is the amount correct, because at the time it might simply be because you've not submitted your IP5. So SARS is just assuming a blanket figure. We've also advised workers in those instances that you'd rather go and negotiate a settlement plan. SARS won't do that, whether you pay in once-off amount, whether you pay over 6 months or even beyond that if your circumstances don't allow it. But you'd rather have the conversation, and you'd rather have the settlement plan to avoid penalties, because SARS does charge penalties if you don't make a settlement plan with them. But we have appealed to Treasury and to SARS. We're hoping to meet with them soon to also make sure that can they please go easy. Workers are really struggling, and they should not be exploiting this opportunity, because workers have waited for a very, very long time for this relief. And we do need to find a way which does address workers' crisis.
Matthew Parks, COSATU spokesperson, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon.